Hey guys, welcome to Czech pronunciation for beginners. I am making this video to cram all the important information that you need to know about pronunciation when you are starting to learn the Czech language. So it is for people who are at the beginning or at the very early stages of their journey to learn the Czech language. And it is really where you should start, because when you are learning Czech, the best practice is to first learn how to read and pronounce the words. And there are two reasons for that, actually. One, it is not difficult at all. It's really easy to learn and remember how to read Czech words. And the other reason is that it makes everything else much easier. So when you start learning grammar and vocabulary, it will be much easier for you if you know how to read and pronounce those words that you are learning. This is a long form video, so you might want to use the timestamps to go from one topic to another. But if you go from the beginning to the end, I promise you that you will get all the information that you need to know about how to read and how to pronounce Czech words. And because it's a long form video, it might not look like much, but it takes so much time to put together. So if you like it, like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, and it gets me motivated to create more videos on Czech language and Czech culture. So thanks a lot in advance. And now let's get down to Czech pronunciation. I need to mention three very important rules of Czech pronunciation. The first one is one letter, one sound rule. Second one is the word stress. And the third one is full vowel pronunciation. So what do I mean by the one letter, one sound rule? In Czech, when you see a letter, it represents one sound. That's not, for example, true in English. Yeah, C can be pronounced S or K sometimes, depending on the word. In Czech, C will always be pronounced C. Like there's no other way to pronounce that in a typical Czech word. The same goes for vowels. Yeah? O will always be O. E will always be E. So that means that basically if you see a word that you've never seen before, and it's Czech obviously, you can already read it, you know the pronunciation. Even if you don't know what it means, you know how to pronounce it without any troubles, because you learn what the individual letters represent, or what sounds they represent, and they never change. So that's really cool. The second rule is word stress, and again it's something that makes Czech pronunciation actually easier. And the rule of word stress in Czech is that the first syllable in a word is always stressed. So there are no Czech words that have a stress somewhere else than on the first syllable, which is great. So you can basically never make a mistake in the pronunciation. That gets a little bit more complicated when we introduce the long vowels. So long vowels are sometimes not at the beginning, but sometimes they are at the end of a word. Like, for example, when you say salad, salad. Yeah, the second and last syllable contains long vowel, but we cannot shift the stress from the first syllable to the second one because it has to stay on the first one. So we have to say salad. And it kind of, I think that for speakers of some languages, it would be actually quite intuitive to move the stress and say salad. Yeah, but that's not how it works in Czech. You cannot say salad. Or salad, I cannot even pronounce that. You have to keep the stress on the first syllable. Salad. Yeah. The same case would be with kamarad. Kamarad. Yeah, that means a friend. And you cannot stress the last syllable where there is long a. You cannot say kamarad, kamarad, I can't even say that. You need to keep in mind that the first syllable is always stressed. And the last of these three rules is the full vowel pronunciation. It's kind of related to the second one about the stress. So in some languages, the vowels which are in unstressed syllables, they get weak pronunciation. They become the schwa sound, or they just change the quality completely. That doesn't happen in Czech. All the vowels in all the words are pronounced fully. So, kamarád. Yeah, the a are always the same. Salát. Koleno. 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 Vowels quality doesn't change depending on where in the word they are. We will encounter examples of these three rules throughout the whole video, so don't worry that I would let you forget those rules. And now we can actually get into the vowels, yeah? Let's start with those. In Czech there are two sets of vowels, short vowels and long ones. They're long variants. So short vowels are a, e, o, u, I. And long vowels are a, e, o, u, I. Of course, you can see that there are these little accent marks over the long variants, and there is one exception, and that is long u. So long u can sometimes be written with this normal accent mark, which is, by the way, called čárka, which means a little line, and sometimes it is written with this little circle, which is called kroužek, which really means little circle. And we will get to why it is sometimes kroužek and why sometimes it is čárka. But for now, what we need to remember is that it is actually read exactly the same. It's just long u. You probably also noticed that when I read these two letters, I and Y, in Czech, měkké I, which means soft I, and tvrdé I, which means hard I, or sometimes it's called Y actually, I said only I. It is pronounced exactly the same. There is a reason why there are two letters, měkké and tvrdé I. We will get to that difference a little bit later in the video. But again, for now, what we have to remember is that they are pronounced exactly the same, and that goes for the short, but also the long variant. So it is either I or I. Now let's go through the list of the vowels one by one. A is always pronounced like the A in English words cup or mud. It's never pronounced as the broad A like in cat, because that sound does not exist in Czech. Now, I will read the words and you can repeat after me. Hala. Hala. That's a hole. Ananas. Ananas. That's a pineapple. Data. Data. That's data. The long variant A is the same sound, it's just held about twice longer, so it sounds like in the English word father. Now again, repeat after me. Káva. Káva. That means coffee. Dávat. Dávat. That's to give. Kabát. Kabát. That means a coat. You can see that we have the word kabát, kabát. We have the long A in the second syllable, but the stress is still on the first syllable. So you have to say kabát, kabát. Never can you pronounce it like something like kabát, kabát, or something like that. That doesn't sound like a Czech word anymore. E is pronounced like the E in English bed or red. E, bed, red. So, okay, repeat after me. Pes. Pes. That's a dog. Test. Test. That's, of course, a test. Deset. Deset. That means 10. like the number 10. Again, long air is just a little bit longer. So again, repeat after me. Leg, leg. That's a cure. Téma, téma. That means topic or a theme. Léto, léto. That is summer. O is always pronounced like O in the English words. Dot or lot. Dot, lot. O, O. Repeat after me. Kolo, kolo. That means bicycle or a wheel, depending on the context. Sto, sto. That is 100. Koleno, koleno. That is a knee. Again, yeah, you have koleno, which contains 3 vowels, and they are pronounced fully. O, e, o. Koleno. Yeah, there's no diminishing quality of the vowels in unstressed syllables. Long O is actually not very common in the Czech language. There are not many words that contain this this vowel, but there are, of course, some. So again, it's a little bit longer. O, short O, long O. So you can repeat after me. Moda, moda. That's fashion. And goal, goal. That's a goal. U is a similar sound to when you say cool or school. So you need to make this round lips and say really nice, crisp U. It's, of course, in cool school, it's long. You need to make it shorter. U, U. So again, repeat after me. U, U. Tuna, tuna. That means a ton. Guma, guma. That's rubber. And nula, nula. That is 0. With long U, we already mentioned that sometimes there is a čárka, which is this normal little line, short line, the accent, the typical accent line, accent mark. And sometimes there is this kroužek, which is this little circle. It's actually quite simple. So the normal accent mark, this čárka, is used when U, when this long U is at the beginning of the word. Like in the words úl, which is a hive, or ústa, ústa, that's a mouth. Now, if this long U is somewhere in the middle or at the end of the word, then it is written with this little circle, with kroužek. Půl, that's a half, or dům, that's a house. There are, of course, some exceptions to the rule, and there are not many of them, so that's cool. And probably the most common is trojúhelník or trojúhelník, where you have this long U with čárka in the middle of the word. And it is because the word is made out of 2 words, of which the second one actually starts with long U. Úhel means angle. Now, letter I and Y are in Czech called actually měkké I, and tvrdé I. Měkké I means soft I, tvrdé I means hard I, or tvrdé I is sometimes called Y. And as we said at the beginning, they are pronounced exactly the same. And they sound very similar to as what they sound like in the English word similar. For example, similar, I. So repeat after me. Kilo, kilo. That means kilo, or like a kilogram. Ty, ty. That means you. Villa, villa. That's a villa. And their long variants, again, same pronunciation, but a little bit longer. So again, repeat after me. Meat, 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 meat. So the first one is with měkké I, and it is to have. The second one with y, with tvrdé I, is to wash. So we would have to be careful, not in the pronunciation, because it's the same, it has the same pronunciation, but in the written form, we would have to be careful with if we are using měkké or tvrdé I. Dým, dým, that's smoke. So we talked about short and long vowels, and it's important to realize that the length of the vowel can actually change the meaning of a word. So for example, we have the word villa, which means a villa, and if we make this I long and we get vila, vila, it means a fairy, like the magic creature. Vila. Yeah, so we have to be careful in the pronunciation and in the writing with the length of the vowel. Right, so that was easy. Now we are going to move to consonants, and you already used a lot of Czech consonants in the previous part of the video where we talked about vowels, and it was in the words that I used to demonstrate the vowels, and I guess that it was not very difficult for you to pronounce those consonants because they actually sound exactly the same, or at least very similar to how they are pronounced in English. And this is exactly the consonants that we are going to talk about first. So the consonants that are similar or even the same as their English counterparts. And those are these guys: m, n, p, b, t, d, k, g, f, v, s, z, l, h. As I said, these consonants are pronounced almost exactly the same as in English. There is a little bit of difference in ptk, because in some dialects in English, they get a little bit of aspiration. That means that there's a little bit of a puff of air after those consonants, like p, t, k, like when you say pet, tempo, or cat. That doesn't happen in Czech. So in Czech you say pes, tempo, káva. There's no aspiration in those consonants. Also, h is pronounced a little bit differently in Czech, because in English it's usually a rather soft and breathy sound, like how, hot. In Czech, it is a little bit stronger and more voiced. So like in the word hala, hala, that's a hall, or duha, duha, that's a rainbow, or hledat, hledat, that means to look for. And now we are getting to consonants which are actually different from English. And those are these: y, c, h, r, and letters with the little hook. That's called Háček, which really means a little hook. Ž, š, č, r, d, t, ň. So again, we have to remember that each letter represents only one sound that never changes. Let's start with y. Y is very easy. It's pronounced like y, and it is the same sound as what you make when you say the English word yet or yesterday. Y, y. All right, so repeat after me. Ja, ja. It means I. Yet, yet. It means to go. Ahoj, ahoj. That means hello. This letter represents the sound ts, ts. Like when you put T and S together, ts, ts. Like for example, when you say in English, let's go, ts, ts. Alright, so repeat after me. Cena, cena. That means a price. Cement, cement. That's a cement. Otec, otec. That's father. Next letter is really interesting. It is made out of two letters, C and H, together, but it really is only one letter. So, for example, if you are doing a crossword in Czech, you would put it into one field there, CH next to each other. The sound that it represents is also very interesting. It is H, H, H. Now, this sound does not exist in standard English. It exists in Scottish English, like when you say Loch Ness. If you have a problem pronouncing this H, I think that the easiest way to practice it, to learn it, is to say long K. So you add a lot of aspiration to K, so it sounds something like this. And so this is the sound that you want to get. So what you then of course need to do is to delete the initial K, and you only say, and then you say it in a very short way. So you can play a little bit with the position of the tongue, because with K it gets a little bit too close to the palate, so it can get a little bit whistly almost. You need to open it a little bit more. You need to make a little bit more space there between your palate and your tongue, but that's only a detail. So if you have time, you can play with that a little bit. But this is exactly the sound that you want to get when you are pronouncing H, 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 H. Of course, you give it some vowel like ha, he, he, ho, hu, so that it doesn't stand alone. And then you, of course, practice it on some words, like, for example, chata. Chata, that's a cottage or a cabin. Chemie. Chemie, that's chemistry. Socha. Socha, that's a statue. This letter is very interesting again because it represents a sound that is very characteristic for Czech, and it is R, R. Now, obviously, this sound does not exist in standard English, and it is sometimes very difficult for even the Czech speakers to get it right. So a lot of kids actually visit a speech therapist to learn this sound properly, as I did when I was a little kid. The problem is that this sound is made by vibration of the tip of the tongue against or in very near proximity to your palate, which is difficult to get it right. But I have some tips for you. So the easiest method would be, if you can do it, just imitate the machine gun sound. So start with T and then follow with R, trrr, trrr. And then, of course, make it shorter. Trrr, 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 r, r. And of course, you need to delete this T from the beginning. So you say r, 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 r. And in the word, it's actually just like one or two vibrations. So it's not like you are saying rock or ruka. You say it in a very short manner. So you say rock, rock. So there are like, I don't know, maybe like 2-3 vibrations in the sound, really. So trrr, and then you go shorter, and in the end you just delete this T from the beginning. This T kind of helps with the pronunciation. You don't need to put it there at all if you can do it without that. So that's one method. Another method, which is actually really used even with the children who cannot pronounce it, Czech children, it is the combination of T and D. You pronounce T-D in a very quick succession, T-D, T-D, T-D. And when you slur this D a little bit, when you relax your tongue a little bit, you should get some vibration into the at the tip of the tongue. So tada, tada, and of course add a vowel at the end. So you say tada, 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 and then you try to relax your tongue a little bit. Tada, 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 and you should get this sound. Of course, it's not as easy as I'm making it look, but after some time, you should really get something very similar to how real r would sound. So, for example, tdo, 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 tdo. Relax your tongue. Tro, 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 tro. And this is exactly what you want to say. Tro. The same with other vowels. You can practice with any vowel whatsoever. And then, of course, you start saying the whole words. Like, for example, tdava, tdava, trava, trava, trava. That's grass. The same with trest, which is punishment. Trico, that is t-shirt, or trumpeta, that's a trumpet. After you can say those, you of course need to add words, like for example, rok, rok, that's a year. Ruka, ruka, that's a hand or an arm. Hra, hra, that's a game. Or dobrý, dobrý, that is good. The good news is that even if your pronunciation of r is not perfect, this is not the end of the world, because even some Czech people cannot say that properly. You sometimes hear, like even on TV, like TV personalities don't have perfect r. They sometimes say r, so that sounds more French than Czech, and it's okay. Everybody can understand you, even if you pronounce it in your own weird way. So don't worry about it too much. But practice makes perfect, so don't neglect it either. Perfect. Now let's talk about the consonants with Háček over them, which is this little hook. As you can see, Háček combined with the t does not look like Háček anymore. The text editor converts it into this apostrophe-like looking mark because of the height of the letter. But while typing, you still need to press the Háček key. And as I said, the text editor converts it into this mark automatically. What this mark does is that it changes the sound, it softens it. So from z, we have zh, z, zh. Zh is the same sound that you make when you say, for example, the English word measure or vision. Zh, zh. Repeat after me. Žena, žena. That's a woman. Železo, železo. That's iron as the material. Růže, růže. That's a rose, the flower. S with Háček is pronounced sh, sh, like in the English words shoe or cash. Repeat after me. Škola, škola. That's school. Taška, taška. That's a bag. Koš, koš. That is a basket. Ц with Háček is pronounced ch, like in the English words Czech or cheese. Repeat after me. Čas, čas. That's time. Or kočka, kočka. That's a cat. Or míč, míč. That's a ball. That was zsc changed into zshch by this little hook over them. Now we are going to talk about 3 letters, dtn, which change into dtn if you add this little hook. These three letters, d, t, n, they are a little bit more special than the z, s, c, because the pronunciation changes not only by the hook, not only by Háček, like it was in z, s, c, yeah? Z can become j only if you add Háček over the z. Like there's no other way to do that. With d, t, n, there are actually more ways to do that. There are three ways to do that. One of them is the Háček, of course. Like you take d, you put Háček over it, and it becomes j. But also, you can follow d with as Háčkem, and then it becomes j. Yeah, if it is normal a, then it is da. But if you add as Háčkem after d, then it becomes j. And the same principle goes for i. So měkké i. If d is followed by měkké i, it is again pronounced di. Di. If it is y, then it is di. And this is where exactly we find out why we have tvrdé a měkké i. Because only měkké i has the power of changing d into j. Let's dive into that. Let's have a look at how it all works. When you take d and put Háček over it, you get j. J. It sounds like you want to say d and y in one sound. Not dy, not one after another, but in one go. J. J. If you cannot say j and you say dy, it's fine, people will understand you. But if you want to learn the authentic sound j, then I suggest you follow this method. First of all, we have to realize that when you say dy, the tip of your tongue goes from top to bottom. Top for d, bottom for y, dy. Now this doesn't happen when you are saying y. When you say y, the whole time, the tip of your tongue is touching your bottom front teeth. So the first thing what you need to do is to set your tongue as if you want to say y, y. Now when you say y, the tip of your tongue is touching your bottom front teeth, and also the sides of your tongue are actually pointing a little bit upwards and touching the palate. Y, y, yeah. You can feel the shape of your tongue in your mouth. And so when you say y, the air flows freely through your mouth. Now when you say y, it's a plosive. So at a certain point, you have to stop the flow of air completely and then let it go. The same happens when you say d, d. Now when you say d, the blockage of the air actually happens when the front of your tongue touches the palate right behind your teeth. Yeah, when you say d, 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 you can feel where the point of contact is. Now, since when we are saying d, the tongue is pointing downwards, so the tip is touching the bottom teeth, and the sides are touching the palate, the only point where we actually can block the air from flowing is the middle of our tongue. So the middle of our tongue has to move upwards and touch the palate, blocking the passage of air. So you can practice it while saying long y and keeping all those points of contact that you already have on the tongue, and moving only the middle of your tongue upwards until it touches the palate. Yeah. So and then of course the air and also the sound stops. Yeah. And now the middle of your tongue touched the palate. It kind of covered the palate and stopped the air. And the same part of the tongue that moved upwards first now needs to move downwards to let the air go again. Exactly like when you say duh. Yeah, first you block the passage of air and then you release it. Duh. This needs to happen when you are saying yeah, but again, the only part of the tongue that is moving is the same part that was first moving up. Yeah, so the middle of your tongue. Yeah. d, d. Yeah, you are lowering the middle of your tongue. The sides of your tongue are still touching the palate, and the tip of your tongue is still touching the bottom front teeth. D, d, d. If you realize that you are still saying something like d, 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 if it is more similar to d than d, it means that probably you need to make the point of contact between your tongue and the palate a little bit further back in your mouth. D is front, d is more at the back. If it sounds like d, not d with Háček, but t with Háček, yeah, it means that you probably are making the point of contact a little bit too much in the back. So you need to play with the point of contact between your tongue and the palate to produce nice, crisp d, d, d. Okay? And then, of course, you add some vowels, yeah, like d, d, ja, ja, di, di. And then we move on to words. Okay? So you can repeat after me. Maďarsko. Maďarsko. There is d with Háček, so it's d, Maďarsko, and it is Hungary. And as I said, it's not only the hook that does the job of changing d into d, it's also as Háčkem. So let's see. For example, if I say dělat, which means to do, I don't have Háček over d, I put it actually over the e after d. But it actually does exactly the same job. So it becomes, it's not dělat, but dělat. Dělat, so it's dělat. The same happens if I follow d with měkké i, like díky. Díky. That means thanks. Díky. So again, there is no Háček over d, but since it is followed by měkké i, it actually changes, this d changes into d. Díky. Díky. Dělat. Okay, so we have to remember that. It's either Háček or as Háčkem or měkké i. Now this only goes for dtn. The other consonants don't get affected by these vowels. If as Háčkem follows another consonant which is not affected by that, it is pronounced je, like in the word piest. Piest. That means a fist. So in this word, p is followed by as Háčkem, but since p is not affected, this as Háčkem is pronounced je, piest. The same principle goes for věc, věc. That means a thing. T with Háček is t, t. Again, like d, it's not ty, it's t. Again, one sound. And again, if you want to practice t, it's the same method that we used with d, yeah? Again, you set your tongue as if you want to say y, and the only part of the tongue that does the job and restricts the passage of air and then lets it go is the middle of your tongue. But in this case, t is actually pronounced with the point of contact a little bit further back in the mouth. Yeah, so again, you have to play with the position of the tongue to go from d, like we practiced in the previous part, to d. Yeah, but the principle is exactly the same. And again, it can be the hook as Háčkem or měkké i that does the job of softening the consonant from t into t. So let's have some examples. Síť. Síť. That's a net or web. Kotě. Kotě. That's a kitten. Tisk. Tisk. That's print. And the last one is n, changing into ň. Ň. Again, same story as for d and t. It is not ny, but ň. Now, if you have a problem pronouncing ny, you can go back to y, and the position of the tongue is actually the same. For ny and y, you put the tongue into exactly the same position. The only difference is, and that goes also for n and d, when you are saying ny, you are actually letting the air flow not only through your mouth, but also through your nose. And again, it can be pronounced ny when that is Háček, if it is followed by as Háčkem, or if it is followed by měkké i. And it can be long or short i, měkké i, doesn't matter. So, examples would be buňka, buňka. That's a cell, a biological cell that is, for example, in your body. Něco, něco. That means something. Nic, nic. That means nothing. Now, let's talk about the most difficult sound in the Czech pronunciation system, and it is r, r, which is r with Háček. Now, sometimes it is taught as r and ž pronounced together, so you get something like ž, ž. And that is actually very close to the r sound. It's not exactly that, so if you don't want to waste too much time on learning the authentic r, then go with that. Czech people will understand you for sure. Now, if you want to give it the time and you want to learn it as Czech people pronounce it, then I recommend following this 5-step pronunciation exercise that will get you there. The first step is that you need to know how to pronounce r, 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 r. You start this exercise by saying this r, 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 r. Short, crisp, trilled, nice, r, 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 r. Step number 2 is whisper it. Okay? Then, step number 3, while doing that, you need to clench your teeth. So you put your teeth together. All right? But of course, the tip of your tongue still needs to be vibrating against your palate as it is when you are saying r, r. Yeah, so it's the same movement of the tip of your tongue. It's actually, I think, a little bit faster when you are saying r than when it is r. So you start r, r, r. Alright, so this sound is actually very similar to the r sound. And if you are not getting the sound exactly as I am now, then what might help is the tip number 4, that you pout your lips. So, alright, so this sound is basically that sound that you want to replicate. Now, the number 5, the step number 5 is actually probably the most difficult, and it is to learn to say this sound without looking like an insane person. So you want to get from to r, r, r. Of course, once you get there, you need to practice it on words. Start with the words that have r at the beginning, because you can get your mouth ready for that. And start with words like, for example, řada. Řada. That's a row or line. Říkat. Říkat. That means to say. Then words that have r somewhere in the middle. Hořet. Hořet. That means to burn. Or kouřit. Kouřit. That means to smoke. And then words where r is at the end. Keř. Keř. That's shrub or bush. Pepř. Pepř. That's black pepper. The last three letters that we are going to have here in this video are actually a little bit special because they are used only in foreign words or in loanwords, meaning that you can see them in some foreign names maybe, or you can see them also in words which were adopted from a different language into the Czech language at some point in history. Most loanwords come from English into the Czech language these days, but we are going to talk about it in a moment. For now, let's finish the letters and the sounds. This one is usually pronounced in Czech kv, 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 like in squash, squash, or queen, queen. Squash is a loan word and queen is a proper name. It's of course a name of a band. This letter is interestingly in Czech called dvojité V, which means double V, and it is usually read as V, V. That's because of German influence, because in German it is also read V. Western, western, Watt. Watt. This letter is always pronounced as ks, 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 like in the word codex, codex, or Mexico, Mexico. Let's talk about loanwords. Loanwords can get a little bit chaotic in their pronunciation. Very often they defy one fundamental rule of Czech pronunciation, and it is the function of měkké I after dtn. So, for example, in the word radio, radio, yeah, we have I, we have měkké I after D, but this D is not pronounced as J, it's radio. And that happens in many loanwords, like for example, minister, minister. Again, that is měkké I after N, but it is not pronounced as N. Or stadion, stadion, that's a stadium. Also diktat, diktat. Yeah, again, there is měkké I after D, and this D is not pronounced as J. Tip, tip, the same. Oh, by the way, tip in Czech, it means tip in the meaning of recommendation. Nickel, nickel, yeah, the same. Vanilka, and many, many more. And these are actually rather old loanwords. And these old loanwords are actually very often adopted into the Czech language, not only in how they sound, but also how they are written. So they changed a little bit to fit the Czech language a little bit better. However, these days, a lot of words, a lot of loanwords come into the Czech language from English. And these modern loanwords very often keep their written form. And here it becomes a little bit chaotic because sometimes they are read very similarly to how they are pronounced in English. Yeah, so for example, rock, rock, or internet, internet. Now, there is one interesting rule, and it is that even in those words which are read similarly to their original sound, there are always the Czech sounds used only the Czech sounds. So, for example, kiwi would not be read kiwi in Czech because w does not exist in the pronunciation system. So the Czech language takes the English pronunciation into consideration, but not that much so that it would change the sound of the sounds themselves. So internet, yeah, nice Czech r there. Chat, yeah, there's no a because we don't have that, so you would say chat, there's a. Or software, yeah, again, no w, so a nice r at the end. But sometimes we just don't care about the pronunciation and we say sci-fi, which is sci-fi, or Wi-Fi. So really the rules for reading the modern loanwords are a little bit vague, so you really need to learn the sound of those words. The last topic for today is not really that important for complete beginners, but I think it is a good idea to mention it. We will not go absolutely deep into this topic, but I will at least try to outline the main ideas. And the topic is assimilation. You actually might have noticed at the very beginning, I was saying the word kamarad. There's something weird happening at the end of the word. And it is that this last letter, d, of this word, I pronounce it a little bit differently. Kamarad. You can hear that it's not d, it's t. And this is called assimilation. And it's a little bit of advanced knowledge, I would say, but at the same time, you will notice it immediately in the Czech language when you hear somebody talk. And how it works is actually not that complicated. A lot of consonants have their voiced or unvoiced counterpart. So they form a couple or a pair. P and B. B is unvoiced, B is voiced. The same goes for T and D. T, D. K, G. H, H. F, V. S, Z. Sh, J. Sometimes when you have a voiced consonant, it can actually become its unvoiced counterpart. So, for example, B can become P, or D can become T, like in the word kamarad. Now, the principle is there are actually two simple rules. The first one is that the last out of the group in consonants, so when you have two or three consonants back to back, the last one decides if the previous ones lose or keep their voice. So, for example, in the word vzduch, we have vzd. Now, d is the last one of the cluster, of the group. And because d is voiced, vz keep their voice, so they are also voiced. However, oh, by the way, vzduch is air. However, if you have vstek, now you probably can hear that I am not saying vstek, but vstek, because the last out of those three consonants is t, and t is unvoiced. V and z actually become their unvoiced counterparts. So it is not vstek, but vstek. So instead of vz, you say fs, vstek. Vstek is anger. The other principle is that at the end of a word, before a pause, if there is a voiced consonant, it again becomes unvoiced. So, for example, let means eyes. Yeah, there's d at the end, but because it's the end of the word, it is pronounced let. Or hlad. That's hunger. And again, d at the end, but it is pronounced d. Lahev. That's a bottle. V becomes f because it's at the end of the word. And hrop, that is a grave. And again, b becomes p because it is at the end of the word. Don't worry about assimilation too much, or better yet, don't worry about it at all. It is not very important. I'm only including it here because you will notice when you hear somebody speak Czech, a native speaker, you will notice that sometimes b is pronounced as p and d is pronounced as th. And I just want you to know that this principle exists in Czech pronunciation. Actually, Czech speakers or Czech native speakers use assimilation without even noticing about that. Like, most people don't even know that it exists, but you will notice it. So only to avoid some confusion about why some consonants are not pronounced as they are written, that's why I am talking about it in this video. Thanks a lot for watching. It was a long video, but you made it, so congratulations. Now go down into the description below and download all the materials that are related to this topic of Czech pronunciation. Leave a comment if you want to, and look around my channel. You might find something interesting to watch, and see you in the next video.